One punch thrown in the first round of a fight almost nobody remembers is a big part of the reason boxers today are not allowed to hit each other in the back of the head. The man who threw it went on to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world in front of a crowd of 80,000 people. The man who absorbed it barely exists in the historical record at all. Some old fight ledgers can't even agree on his first name. This is the story of that punch and of the forgotten man standing in front of it. Picture Newark, New Jersey in the spring of 1922. There is no television, there is no film of the fight that survives to this day. If you wanted to see a prize fight, you bought a ticket, you sat in a smoky hall, and you watched it happen once, live in front of you. Newspapers were the only replay. A boxer's whole career could be written and rewritten the next morning by a sports writer who decided how the story would be told. Boxing itself was still barely legal in much of the country. Several states had banned prize fighting outright only a few years earlier, treating it as street violence, dressed up with gloves and a referee. New Jersey and New York were among the states dragging the sport into something resembling regulation, licensing boxers, appointing ringside physicians, and slowly writing down rules for exactly what a fighter was and was not allowed to do to his opponent. Those rules were nowhere near finished. Fighters clinched, wrestled, and hit each other in ways that would draw an instant disqualification today. A referee's word in the moment was close to final. Into local halls like these, on any given week, came men whose names would never make a poster twice. Preliminary bouts were the unglamorous scaffolding the sport was built on. 4-round and 6-round fights meant to warm up a crowd before the main event. The men who took them were paid little, trained inconsistently, and accepted, or at least hoped, that a strong enough showing might turn into a second fight, then a third. Most never got the second fight at all. Into that world walked a 27-year-old Argentine named Luis Ángel Firpo. He called himself, and was soon called by everyone else, the Wild Bull of the Pampas. He stood well over 6 feet tall. He fought like a man who had never been told to defend himself, only to attack. He had spent the previous 4 years compiling knockout after knockout across Argentina, Uruguay, and Chile. And in early 1922, he did something few South American fighters had ever done. He packed his bags and sailed north to try his luck in the United States. Why did American promoters take a chance on him? Because a heavyweight who could end a fight in one punch was the most valuable thing in boxing, and Firpo could end a fight in one punch. His first American bout came on March 20, 1922, in Newark. He knocked out a fighter named Tom Maxted in the 7th round. A couple weeks later, on April 4, he was matched against another local heavyweight for his second American appearance. The record books list this opponent as Joe McCann. Other surviving accounts call him Tom McCann. Nobody today can tell you for certain which one is correct, and that alone tells you almost everything about who he was. He had fought, by most counts, exactly once before stepping into the ring with Firpo. He was not a contender. He was what boxing history quietly calls an opponent, a man brought in to lose, to give a rising star a name to put on a poster and a body to knock down. He never got the chance to be beaten the ordinary way. In the first round, Firpo landed a punch to the back of McCann's head and neck. In the language of the ring, this is called a rabbit punch, named for the sharp chop hunters once used to kill a rabbit instantly. Unlike a punch to the jaw, which a fighter can see coming and brace for, a rabbit punch lands on the base of the skull and the top of the spine, an area with almost no natural cushioning. McCann went down for a count of 9. He survived it. But something in that moment moved through the sport far beyond the walls of that Newark arena. Why is a punch to the back of the head still illegal in boxing today? Because the danger McCann's knockdown exposed was structural, not personal to him. A blow to the chin can be absorbed by rolling with it. A blow to the base of the skull cannot be rolled with at all. It can jar the spinal cord directly and, In the worst cases, it can kill. New Jersey's boxing authorities were already wrestling in the early 1920s with how to regulate a sport that had only recently become legal to watch in many American states. Several boxing historians point to bouts like the Firpo-McCann fight and to the rabbit punch specifically as part of what pushed New Jersey's commission toward formally outlawing the blow alongside the kidney punch, a similarly dangerous shot to the lower back. Other states, and eventually national and international sanctioning bodies, followed New Jersey's lead over the following years until the rabbit punch became one of the handful of punches banned in every jurisdiction on earth where boxing is legally regulated. McCann's name was in the newspaper coverage of that bout, and then it wasn't anywhere ever again. Firpo's story went the opposite direction entirely. He kept fighting. He kept knocking men out. In one 1923 bout at Madison Square Garden, he beat a former title challenger named Bill Brennan so badly that Brennan needed hospital treatment for a concussion afterward. "Dempsey never hit me any harder than this fellow," Brennan told reporters, comparing Firpo's punch to the man who was, at that moment, the heavyweight champion of the world. It was meant as praise for Firpo, and it was also, without anyone quite realizing it yet, a preview of what was coming. What happens when a fighter who hits that hard finally gets his title shot? On September 14, 1923, Firpo got his answer, and so did the sport of boxing. He stepped into the ring at the Polo Grounds in New York to challenge Jack Dempsey for the heavyweight championship of the world. 80,000 people packed the stadium. Late in the first round, Firpo caught Dempsey with a right hand that sent the champion crashing backward through the ropes, out of the ring entirely, and into the laps of the ringside reporters. It remains one of the single most reproduced images in the history of American sport, later painted by the artist George Bellows in a canvas that still hangs in a museum today. Dempsey climbed back through the ropes. Dempsey recovered, and in the second round, Dempsey knocked Firpo out cold. Firpo lost the biggest fight of his life, but he had already won something no record book can erase, a permanent place in boxing's memory, immortalized in a single, unforgettable image. He would fight on for a few more years, then retire to Argentina a wealthy man, remembered as one of the hardest punchers the heavyweight division had ever produced. McCann was remembered for nothing at all. That is the mechanism by which boxing forgets a man. It is not usually cruelty, it is arithmetic. A sports writer has limited column inches and he spends them on the fighter who is going somewhere, not the man standing in front of him on a random Tuesday in April. The rule that came out of that night eventually got attached in the minds of anyone who bothered to trace its origin to Firpo, because Firpo is the name anyone can still find. The man who actually absorbed the blow that helped change the rule book was already fading out of the record before the ink on the newspaper had dried. Why don't more people know the origin of the rabbit punch ban? Because the origin story requires remembering the loser, and boxing has never been especially good at remembering losers, especially ones whose own name couldn't be pinned down twice in a row. There is a version of boxing history where the man in that Newark ring in April 1922 is a footnote inside a footnote mentioned only when someone is explaining Firpo's early American record, and there is a truer version, the one this channel exists to tell, where a nameless enough opponent absorbed a punch to the back of the skull and, whether by luck, by precedent, or by the plain visible danger of what happened to him, helped push boxing toward outlawing that punch for every fighter who has stepped into a ring since. Every time a referee today stops a fight to warn a boxer about hitting behind the head, every time a point gets deducted for a rabbit punch, there is a quiet, mostly invisible debt owed to a man boxing could not even agree how to spell. He never got a rematch. He never got a nickname, a museum painting, or a plaque. What he got, if the historians tracing this rule back are right, was something rarer than a title belt, a rule in the book that exists in part because of what happened to him. It is time, at last, that the fight that made boxing ban a punch forever gave him back his name.